Revenge on the money-hungry best friend. I was blessed with beauty and a good family background. But later, when news spread that I had unfortunately been diagnosed with a terrible cancer, Tiffany, the person I once considered my best friend, turned her back on me. She blamed me for everything, screaming everywhere that her son was weak and sickly because I had held him from the day he was born. Day after day, she would come to my house, yelling and demanding compensation. My parents, out of concern for their sick child and not wanting this commotion to affect my treatment, swallowed their bitterness and conceded time and again. Even when the compensation had reached an astronomical sum, she showed no sign of stopping. Exploiting my trust, she pretended to reconcile and invited me to her house. There, her entire family ganged up on me, forcing me to endure the humiliation at the hands of her idiotic older brother. Not stopping there, she spread malicious rumors everywhere that I had seduced him, forcing me to marry him. Unable to bear the crushing pressure from public opinion, the physical and mental humiliation, coupled with irreparable emotional wounds, I collapsed and sought death by jumping from a rooftop. But fate seemed to grant me another chance at life. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on that fateful day when Tiffany called, asking me to come and hold her baby. "Jade, have you arrived yet? My wife is about to give birth." While I was still disoriented, the phone rang incessantly, accompanied by frantic knocking on my car window and loud curses from outside. "How are you driving? If you want to die, don't drag me into it." Those chaotic sounds made me panic and slam on the brakes. In an instant, my whole body felt like it had fallen into a nightmare, my back drenched in cold sweat. The man's curses abruptly stopped when I lowered the car window. He seemed a bit flustered, scratching his head, and said, "Next time, drive carefully, okay? If there was a real collision, we'd both be in trouble." Yes, I'm sorry, sir. Thank you." I nodded profusely. Fortunately, the man didn't want to make a big deal out of it and even gave way for me to go first. My car hadn't even restarted when the phone rang again. "Jade, where are you? The baby's about to be delivered." Alex's voice, Tiffany's husband, sounded very anxious. "Hey, Jade Chu, can you hear me? Did you get into an accident? Are you all right?" Immediately dispelling the terrifying memories that had just flooded back, I tried to stay calm and replied, "Something came up, I think I'll be a little late." Before I could finish, there was a knock on the passenger window again. Alex didn't let me explain, calling out, "Get out of the car and come inside, I'll park for you. Tiffany said you absolutely have to be the first one to hold the baby." As he spoke, Alex walked around to the driver's side, trying to open the car door. When the window hadn't fully rolled up, he saw my trembling hands gripping the steering wheel. He asked, surprised, "What's wrong with your hands?" Looking directly at Alex's familiar, scheming face, I knew that those painful memories were not a dream. Now, if I wanted to escape the nightmare of my past life, I had only one path: preemptive strike and counterattack. I raised my shaking hands, trying to act as genuinely as possible. "I have a strange illness. Whenever I experience something scary, my hands shake uncontrollably. You saw it, I almost crashed into someone's car just now, and my hands are like this now." I paused, then continued, "I probably can't hold the baby." My mind was a tangled mess, and I hadn't come up with a perfect plan yet. I could only try to stop everything at the root. But it seemed Alex wasn't easily deterred. He even reached into the car, trying to pull me out. "It's fine, you just have to make it look good. You just hold the baby while my mom supports it from underneath, and it's done. Come on, get out of the car, you know how Tiffany is. If you don't come, who else would dare hold the child?" Just then, right in front of the hospital gate, because of our struggle, the cars behind started honking loudly. An idea suddenly flashed in my mind. I pretended to agree, all right. But as soon as I got out of the car, I deliberately acted carelessly, put the car in reverse, and lightly pressed the accelerator, causing my car's rear to collide with the front of another car. At first, I worried that the person would recognize me and let me off. But to my surprise, a middle-aged woman stepped out of the collided car. She seemed to have a fiery temper, but also sharp-tongued and had her own logic. However, she couldn't stand my stubbornness. So, under Alex's astonished gaze, the auntie and I began a fierce argument, shouting endlessly about having to go hold my best friend's baby. Finally, because neither of us would back down, the auntie decided to call the police. Thanks to this, I successfully avoided having to hold Tiffany and Alex's child. It was only when the police car was taking me to the station that, through the rearview mirror, I caught Alex's gaze. That look, both venomous and full of resentment, sent a sudden chill down my spine. Could it be that the events of my past life weren't a mere coincidence, but that everything had been a pre-laid trap from the very beginning? In my past life, Tiffany, my good friend, always insisted that whoever was the first to hold the child would pass on their traits as the child grew up. And I had inherited good genes from my parents. From childhood, everyone praised me for my beauty. When I was in school, just because a photo of me was posted by friends on a short video platform, I caught the eye of a famous director who repeatedly contacted me, inviting me to join the entertainment industry. However, I firmly refused all those invitations. My family wasn't super rich, but we weren't lacking either, enough for me to live a comfortable life without worrying about money. Moreover, I was an only child, my parents' precious treasure. My heart wouldn't allow me to be away from their loving embrace for too long. Just thinking about it, my heart would clench as if someone was strangling it. If I hadn't blindly trusted Tiffany's sweet, honeyed lies, never once guarding against her, my parents wouldn't have had to endure a broken family and a shattered home in their twilight years. Although this time I had managed to avoid holding Tiffany's child, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything hadn't been completely resolved. The emotional wounds still festered. But right now, the most important thing I had to focus on was my own health. After arriving at the police station, I immediately changed my attitude, bowing and repeatedly apologizing to the elderly woman I had just argued with. As I had predicted, she was a reasonable person, so when she saw that I was no longer aggressive or arrogant as before, she not only didn't make things difficult but generously only accepted the exact amount for car repair costs, not demanding a single extra penny. Remembering my past life, those days spent drowning in the online community's vitriol, crushed by countless insults and curses from people I had never even met, encountering such an understanding and reasonable person made my nose sting, tears welling up. It turned out the world still had many kind people. Not everyone was equally wicked. Leaving the police station, I quickly drove to another hospital for a checkup. In my past life, it wasn't until Tiffany's child was 3 years old that I accidentally discovered I had breast cancer. However, at that time, the disease was still in its early stages, not yet life-threatening. It was only because Tiffany's entire family conspired and pressured me step by step that my condition rapidly worsened in less than a year. In the end, I not only failed to find suitable treatment, but also suffered humiliation, abuse, and fierce attacks from public opinion. With no way out, I had to commit suicide by jumping from a building to prove my innocence. But now, I no longer cared too much about whether I had proven anything in my past life, because I had a chance to start over, to rewrite my life in a different direction. This time, I absolutely had to prevent all risks and dangers from the very beginning, not allowing them any chance to arise. Solving my health issues was the first step in my revenge plan. Guarding against their insidious schemes and cruel retaliation was the second step. All that they had done to me in my past life, I would make them pay back 1,000 times over. They wanted to throw dirty water on me. Well, let them wait and see if they could endure it when that dirty water was splashed back onto them. Not to mention, it wasn't until my last moments before my final breath that I discovered that my good friend, Tiffany, and her husband Alex were not genuinely in love as they portrayed. In fact, they had fierce conflicts over the enormous fortune they had extorted from my family, eventually exposing a shocking secret that no one could have ever imagined. I drove to another private hospital, requesting a series of comprehensive tests, from basic to specialized. The results were exactly as I had predicted. My breast had an abnormal lump, but a biopsy was still needed to confirm if it was malignant. Although I knew it was a malignant tumor, and that it would grow very quickly within the next 3 years, the hospital would certainly not believe the words of a layperson like me. Fortunately, the biopsy could be performed on-site, and I would receive the results in a few days. After completing the breast-related tests, I proceeded with other full-body examinations to confirm that there were no other serious issues. Only then did I feel at ease driving home, hoping that no more misfortunes would occur. I had intended to embrace my parents and cry loudly to release all the bitterness and resentment in my heart, but I unexpectedly saw them waiting for me outside the house from afar. As soon as they saw me, their eyes immediately welled up with tears. I felt something was wrong. An ominous premonition suddenly struck me. I choked up and asked my parents, "Could it be, Dad and Mom, that you also?" Before I could finish, my mother tearfully nodded, confirming my fear. A dull ache, as if someone was squeezing my chest, made it difficult even to speak. After a long moment, I gathered all my courage to ask, "Did Tiffany hurt you too?" My mother shook her head, then nodded. "You could say that, but it's all in the past now." My mother sighed softly. "Your father and I only have you. If you're gone, what's left for us to live for?" I choked back tears, trying to suppress the tears that were on the verge of spilling. "Dad, Mom, I'm sorry, I failed you." I burst into sobbing, tears streaming down like rain. My mother hugged me tightly, while my father gently patted my back, one stroke at a time. "It's my fault for not being able to protect you too. I'm useless." My father turned away in sorrow, trying to hide the tears rolling down his cheeks. I reached out and hugged my father. "No, Dad, it's my fault. I was a poor judge of character. I brought the wolf into our house." My mother tightened her embrace. All right, all right. Fortunately, heaven has eyes and has given our family a chance to start over." My mother was the first to wipe away her tears, then looked at me worriedly. "Jade, if I remember correctly, today is Tiffany's delivery day, right?" "That's right, but this time I won't hold that child." Hearing this, my mother let out a sigh of relief. "That's good, very good." I added, my voice full of determination, "But I have no intention of forgiving them." My father gently patted my shoulder as he spoke. "My child, as long as our family is together, the grievances of the past life, let's not seek revenge. Let's let go of everything." I understood that my father wasn't saying this out of cowardice or fear of trouble, but because he was afraid that our family would once again be caught in a whirlpool of suffering and pain. His way of thinking had slowly influenced our entire family, always taking the blame upon himself, silently enduring, and pushing himself to the brink, ultimately unintentionally harming himself. But I knew that as long as my mother and I were hurt, my father would not hesitate to stand up and shield us, protecting us at all costs. It was just that my father's personality was deeply ingrained, difficult to change. But it didn't matter. If my father couldn't change, I would change for him. "Right now, your health is the most important thing." After helping me into the house, my mother looked at me with worried, concerned eyes. I told my parents about going to the hospital for a checkup and that I was still waiting for the test results. Hearing this, my parents were temporarily relieved. The whole family sat and chatted for a long time, sharing their thoughts and feelings. When they saw me yawn, my parents let me go to my room to rest. I declined my mother's offer to sleep together. Not because I was shy or hiding anything, but because I knew that, as expected, tonight I would receive a call from my good friend, Tiffany. And indeed, past 10 p.m., after I had just showered and lay down in bed for a short while, my phone rang continuously, signaling an incoming call. The caller was none other than Tiffany. I had barely picked up before her shrill, acidic voice came pouring out, not giving me a chance to interrupt. "Chew, Jade, what kind of game are you playing? Didn't we make it clear that when my son was born, you would be the first to hold him? Do you know that if you don't come, it will affect my son's entire life?" "Why are you so selfish?" "I knew it. Rich girls like you never genuinely consider us friends, do you?" As she spoke, she sniffled and cried, acting as if she were the most wronged person in the world, making others uncomfortable and annoyed. After crying for a long time, perhaps realizing my unusual silence, her tone became more hesitant. "Jade, are you still there?" "Are you finished talking?" I replied coldly. Perhaps my voice was too cold, making the atmosphere on the other end of the line eerily silent for a few seconds. Then she continued, "Jade, I didn't mean to blame you, I already told you, the first person to hold the baby after coming out of the delivery room is really important for the child. I'm sorry, I got a bit emotional just now, but you did agree to it, didn't you? Didn't Alex tell you I got into a car accident and had to go to the police station? We had known each other since college, experienced so many ups and downs together. Yet, I had to live a new life to truly see her true, snake-like nature. I couldn't even help but suspect that she had an ulterior motive from the very beginning when she approached me, when she befriended me. He did, but he said it wasn't serious, so I guess it's fine." Tiffany still stubbornly clung on, refusing to let me off the hook. I no longer wanted to be polite or accommodating to her, so I replied frankly, "Are you suggesting I obstruct an officer of the law?" "No, no, no. All right, anyway, what's done is done, let's just forget it. Consider me generous for letting you off this time." Tiffany feigned generosity. "So I should thank you for your generosity, then?" I retorted sarcastically, without the slightest hint of politeness. "Chu Jade, did you eat a firecracker? Why are you acting so strange today?" Finally, Tiffany noticed the abnormality in my changed attitude. I knew she was the type of person who wouldn't stop until she achieved her goal, who would try every means to get what she wanted. Instead of waiting for things to unravel and letting her add fuel to the fire, it was better for me to take the offensive first, catching her off guard. Thinking this, I softened my voice, trying to speak as gently as possible. "Tell me, what do you want me to do to let this go? Just tell me straight, don't beat around the bush." "Oh, come on, don't talk as if I'm blaming you. I don't mean that." Hearing my voice soften, Tiffany thought she had gained control of the situation, so she put on a bit of an act before immediately proposing the plan she had carefully calculated in her head. "How about this? The day after tomorrow is my son's full-month celebration. You can prepare a red envelope for him as a token of your sincerity. Consider it your blessing for your future nephew." "How much should I give then?" I tightened the phone in my hand, trying to suppress the anger rising in my chest. How ridiculous. I had to live 2 lifetimes to realize that my so-called best friend only saw me as a mobile ATM, ready to withdraw money whenever she needed it. "Well, just give him 88 million, you're not short on money anyway. Plus, that number is very lucky, bringing many good things. Then, I'll tell my son to acknowledge you as his godmother. That way, thanks to your wealth and good fortune, whether you held him right after birth won't matter anymore." Tiffany spoke nonstop, rambling on, painting a beautiful picture of scenarios she had concocted in her mind. After she finished, I took a deep breath to regain my composure, then calmly said, "But after leaving the police station, I felt unwell, so I stopped by the hospital for a checkup. The doctor suspects I might have cancer." As soon as I finished speaking, the other end of the line fell eerily silent, not a sound. But to achieve my goal, I paid little attention, continuing to speak slowly and clearly. "Since the baby is still so young and has low immunity, I think it's best not to get close. What if I pass the illness to the baby? That would be dangerous. Thinking about it, your little boy really is blessed." I began to analyze, trying to express myself more carefully. "You know how I drive, how could I constantly get into trouble? It must be that heaven discovered my illness early and, fearing I would bring bad luck to your son, intervened to protect him." Tiffany had remained silent until now, letting me ramble on, trying to justify my strange words and actions. "I'm sorry. Before, I often called you superstitious. Now that I think about it, perhaps there really are deities protecting us in this world." My voice deepened, feigning sincere remorse. "As for the money for your son's celebration, treating cancer is like throwing money out the window. Although my family is quite well off, we probably can't afford it. I was going to ask to borrow some from you, but I thought you just gave birth, so your finances must be tight, and I didn't dare ask." I explained evasively, concealing my true intentions. "Where would I get money?" Tiffany reacted instinctively, her words somewhat harsh, making me pause for a moment. Then, from the other end of the line, faint whispers echoed, the content vague and unclear, but my intuition told me those weren't pleasant words. Exactly as predicted, a moment later, Tiffany's voice rang out again, this time much softer. "It's okay, I was just joking. We're so close, how could I treat you coldly just because you're sick?" She tried to correct herself, making excuses for her earlier carelessness. "Alex and I have discussed it. Although we're not rich, we do have a small savings. How about this? On the day of the baby's full-month celebration, you come to my house, and I'll give you the money first. Just use it all, and we'll figure out the rest. If it's not enough, I'll find a way to get more." If this were my past life, hearing these words, I would undoubtedly have been moved to tears. But now, all the painful memories of my past life were still deeply etched in my mind. I would absolutely never believe her sudden, fake kindness. I didn't even need to think much to guess her true purpose. If she was so eager to meet me, then I wouldn't mind indulging her. Thinking this, I lowered my voice, speaking with a grateful tone. "Thank you so much, Tiffany. You really are a good friend." I tried to speak in a choked voice to convey emotion. Between us, why be so formal? I just gave birth, my health is still quite weak. You should also rest. Let's talk more tomorrow. Tiffany seemed pleased with my reaction. She quickly ended the conversation. Weak. Just now, she was shouting into the phone, forcing me to hold her son. What part of that was like someone who had just given birth and was still weak? After hanging up, I immediately called a few close friends, briefly explaining my health situation and hinting that I wanted to borrow some money. In truth, I didn't actually need the money, but I understood Tiffany too well. She would definitely try to inquire with mutual acquaintances to verify if my cancer story was true. And indeed, right after I finished the call, a friend messaged me, informing me that Tiffany had just asked if I had borrowed money from that person. Feeling something strange, my friend took a screenshot of the message and sent it to me. This further reinforced my suspicions. It seemed I needed to prepare everything starting now. With that thought, I immediately messaged the friends who had just agreed to lend me money, confirming that I truly needed their financial help. Only when I received their replies did I feel at ease putting down my phone and falling asleep. That night, I had a sound, dreamless sleep. The next morning, I personally went to visit a close childhood friend. She was currently studying Sanchu, a practical combat martial art. Don't misunderstand, I had no intention of learning Sanchu to become a martial arts champion. I just needed to learn a few basic self-defense moves for protection. Actually, my main purpose was to meet and chat with my friend. After preparing everything meticulously, the day of Tiffany's son's baby bathing ceremony finally arrived. Early that morning, as soon as I stepped out of the house, Tiffany continuously called, urging me, forcing me to drive to her mother's house. Why hold the baby bathing ceremony at Tiffany's mother's house? I didn't bother to ask, because I knew their scheme better than anyone. Thanks to the painful memories of my past life, I arrived a little earlier than they had anticipated. I drove and stopped in an empty lot next to Tiffany's house. And indeed, from beyond the wall, I heard her whole family huddled together, instructing her idiotic older brother. Just as I had predicted, after hearing about my cancer, they had decided to accelerate their entire plan. But this time, I hadn't come empty-handed as in my past life. At that moment, a neighbor walked by. I pretended to have just gotten out of the car, closing the door naturally as if nothing was amiss. When she learned I was Tiffany's school friend, she happily took my hand, showering me with compliments. Then she lowered her voice and advised me, "Child, listen to me. The water in this area often doesn't agree with strangers. Drinking it easily causes stomach aches, so don't drink it." She reminded me sincerely. Yes, thank you so much, Auntie. I was truly grateful for her kindness, and even gave her 200,000 VND, asking her to guide some of my school friends from the village entrance. Hearing that I had friends coming, her worried expression softened somewhat. She firmly refused to accept my money and promised to help me welcome the friends who were on their way. Looking at her expression, I guessed that she must have known more or less about the wicked things Tiffany's family was scheming. Thinking about the depraved acts Tiffany's idiotic brother had committed in my past life, if I wasn't mistaken, that neighbor must also have a daughter, so she didn't want to be involved with such a vile family. Perhaps they heard our footsteps, because as soon as the neighbor left, Tiffany's entire family simultaneously poured out. They watched her retreating back with guilty eyes. "Did she say anything bad to you?" Tiffany asked me in a probing tone. "No, not at all, she's very kind. I asked for directions and she led me all the way here. I offered her money, but she wouldn't take it." I replied innocently, trying to hide the truth. "You're such a fool who loves to show off your wealth," Tiffany mumbled with a sarcastic tone, but I pretended not to hear. Seeing her, only 3 days after giving birth, wrapped up tightly and still coming out, I feigned concern and asked, "Why are you out so early? There's a lot of cold wind, be careful not to catch a cold." I deliberately reminded her, pretending to care about her health. "It's fine, just for a moment. Come inside quickly." Tiffany grabbed my hand, but I skillfully dodged, pretending to steady her to keep my balance. Inside, I coldly scoffed. To seize my family's assets, she didn't even care about observing a proper postpartum confinement. Although I had anticipated everything, when I saw that there was no one else in the house besides Tiffany and her husband and Alex's parents, not even close relatives, I still felt a little surprised. It was fine if neighbors didn't come. After all, this was just a baby bathing ceremony, not a full month or 100-day celebration, so their absence was normal. But for not even close relatives to be present, everything became too clear. Nevertheless, I didn't rush to expose their scheme. I let them pretend to be warm, asked me kindly, and urged me to come inside to eat and drink. Until they placed the exact glass of water in front of me that I had drunk in my past life, I used the excuse that the doctor had forbidden cold drinks to refuse. Tiffany's expression stiffened a little. She insisted that I just take one sip. Seeing that I still stubbornly refused to drink, the smile on her face almost couldn't be maintained. "Jade, you haven't seen my son yet. Come on, I'll take you to see him for a bit." As expected, this was her contingency plan. I didn't expose her, intentionally leaving my backup phone on the table, then stood up and followed her into the inner room. She continuously praised how handsome and adorable her son was, telling me to gaze at the baby for a long time. She chattered nonstop, but I still noticed something unusual in her eyes, concealing something terrifying. And indeed, as soon as I turned my head, I saw Alex standing right behind me, a rolling pin in hand, ready to strike down on my head. Fortunately, yesterday I had just learned a few basic self-defense moves. I quickly dodged the treacherous blow, causing the rolling pin to hit the baby lying on the bed directly. The 3-day-old baby screamed, its heartbreaking cries echoing throughout the house. Everyone outside immediately rushed into the room, while I quickly pulled out my backup phone from my pocket, rapidly dialed the emergency number, lowered the volume, and hid it in a secluded spot, feigning shock as I asked, "Alex, what are you trying to do?" "Tiffany, is your husband trying to kill me?" I deliberately raised my voice, adding fuel to the fire. Without waiting for Alex to answer, I pretended to be scared and ran to hide behind Tiffany. But the baby's cries were too loud, making Tiffany momentarily panic, and she immediately pushed me away. "Chew, Jade, are you crazy? Why did you dodge? If anything happens to my son, you'll have to pay with your life." "Tiffany, what nonsense are you talking about? Your husband wanted to bludgeon me to death. I barely dodged in time," I retorted, full of indignation. "I just wanted to knock you unconscious. What are you making such a fuss about?" Tiffany said impatiently, then picked up the baby and handed it to her mother. "Mom, take the baby to the hospital with Grandma and Grandpa immediately. Alex and I will stay here. We absolutely have to resolve today's matter." The 3 adults, hearing this, quickly carried the baby and rushed out. From the window, I saw them so flustered that they even forgot to lock the door. This made me even more confident in my plan, but outwardly I still feigned fear and backed away. "Tiffany, what are you doing?" Tiffany laughed coldly, her eyes becoming eerie. "Jade, you're my best friend, so of course, I want you to become my sister-in-law, so we can be together forever." "What? But your brother is clearly..." Before I could finish, her idiotic brother walked into the room, one hand clutching his pants, the other wiping his snot. I immediately bent over, dry heaving, because he was the one who had raped and humiliated me in my past life. "Jade, don't look at my brother like that. Actually, he's completely normal for a man," Tiffany said with a triumphant look as she saw me constantly retching. The tension from the injured baby seemed to have completely vanished since her brother appeared. "Look, I'm being so good to you, aren't I? You already have cancer. It's not certain you'll have another chance to be intimate with a man. You're also an only child, and I'm your best friend. Shouldn't I help you plan your future?" Tiffany said, stepping forward, intending to pull me up. I immediately recoiled, avoiding her touch. She sneered dismissively, continuing, her voice full of calculation. "Look, after my brother and you truly become husband and wife, won't we be one family? When you pass away, I'll take care of your parents thoroughly. Do you remember? I once mentioned that my village just built a nursing home. Then I'll put uncle and auntie there to live. See how good I am to you." This time, Tiffany didn't bother with her fake act anymore. She decisively grabbed my hand and yanked me up from the cold floor. "Don't you feel grateful to me?" "Grateful for your head? Tiffany, I truly underestimated you." I was so angry that my whole body trembled uncontrollably. Tiffany whistled, mocking me. "Oh my, it turns out our good girl also knows how to curse. What are you standing there for? Alex, don't you want to get Chew Jade's family money? Quickly, hold her down for me." As soon as she finished speaking, Alex immediately rushed towards me. I struggled fiercely. Meanwhile, Tiffany hastily ran to grab a rope. With no one else to stop him, Alex's eyes revealed pure greed and desire for possession. He pressed his knee firmly onto my shoulder, one hand gripping my wrist tightly, the other brazenly groping my face. Too bad, such a beautiful face is about to be defiled by that dirty death. How about I be your first, little sister? Are you the type who finishes quickly? Alex paid no attention to my provocations. He had already started to unbuckle his belt. It was truly a pity he had forgotten the ancient proverb, beauty at the tip of a knife. Immediately, I seized the opportunity, drew up my knee, and delivered a powerful kick straight to his groin. Alex let out a tragic scream, falling to the ground in agony. The idiot, Tiffany's brother, still stood foolishly at the door, clapping and giggling. His innocent laughter unintentionally masked Alex's agonizing cries. How could I miss such a golden opportunity? I quickly picked up the rolling pin that had been tossed aside and delivered another powerful kick straight to the idiot's groin. Although his mind wasn't clear, he still felt pain, howling and writhing on the floor. Just as I predicted, Alex quickly regained his strength and lunged towards me. As soon as I saw him loosen his grip, I raised the rolling pin high and swung it repeatedly. 1 hit, 2 hits, 3 hits. If he raised his hands to block, I hit his hands. If he lowered them, I hit him directly there. 10 consecutive blows landed mercilessly. Less than a minute passed, but I still had no intention of stopping. Taking advantage of a brief pause for breath, I quickly locked the room door. Just then, frantic knocking and Tiffany's shouts echoed from outside. "Alex, what happened? What's going on?" The only reply she received was her soon-to-be husband's tragic groans. I paid no attention to her, turning around to begin the second round of treatment. I struck continuously until Alex completely passed out from the pain. At this point, I heard hurried footsteps running away. Tiffany was surely looking for the key. I wasn't in a hurry and turned to look at the idiot. His eyes showed extreme fear, his hands clutching his groin, tears and snot covering his face. Just as he was about to retreat, I gave him the same treatment. 1 hit, 2 hits. By the 20th hit, his pants were stained with blood. Tiffany had finally found the key. But before she could unlock the door, I opened it first. Tiffany froze for a moment at the chaotic scene before her eyes. I politely leaned aside so she could clearly see the horrific scene unfolding in the room. Immediately, a terrified shriek, like a pig being slaughtered, pierced the silent air. "Chew Jade, you damned bitch, how dare you be so brutal?" She looked around in panic, finally rushing to embrace Alex, who lay motionless. Seeing blood on her hands, Tiffany became even more frantic, screaming tragically, "You're finished, Chew Jade, you're dead meat. I'll sue you, make you compensate with your entire fortune, and send you to jail until you rot." I casually rotated my wrist, scoffing, "No wonder you've only ever been good at harming others and doing nothing for your family. Turns out your head is full of tofu dregs. This is merely legitimate self-defense." "You," Tiffany furiously pointed her finger directly at my face. I immediately swung the rolling pin, making her shriek in pain and retract her hand in fear, but not forgetting to glare at me with eyes that wanted to devour me alive. "You say legitimate self-defense? Who would believe that? Do you have any proof? Are the police your family?" "We do, we have proof." A voice rang out, making Tiffany shudder in fear. Her main door was violently kicked open. My good friends, who had lent me money, entered one after another. Seeing this, I threw the rolling pin aside, took out the hidden backup phone, and quickly called for an ambulance. Tiffany was so frightened that her face turned deathly pale, but she still tried to maintain her composure, even attempting to appear calm. "So what? You weren't even at the scene. Who would believe your empty words?" "Who said we only have empty words?" My best friend raised her mobile phone, slowly walked closer, stood right in front of Tiffany, and pressed the stop recording button. Inside, it contained the entire recorded conversation of their despicable conspiracy. My childhood best friend gently took the rolling pin from my hand. It wasn't until she took my hand and pulled me into her embrace that I realized my hands were trembling uncontrollably. "Jade, it's okay now. It's okay, you're safe." She gently comforted me, but she didn't know that I wasn't trembling out of fear, but because I was overly excited, so excited that my whole body couldn't stop shaking. "Tiffany, we've been classmates for so many years, yet only now do I see your true, venomous nature." "That's right, Tiffany, are you even human? Jade is so sick, you don't help her, and instead, you heartlessly try to seize all her assets. The most infuriating thing is that you even dared to plan for your idiotic brother to humiliate her. Do you know that's a criminal offense? I've already called the police, just wait for the law's retribution. My friend's relentless criticisms didn't faze Tiffany. She stared at me with eyes full of hatred, gritting her teeth. It's you, isn't it? Everything was set up by you, right? Tiffany, what are you talking about? I just thought your son was having his 3-day bath, so I invited a few friends to celebrate. As I spoke, I buried my face in my best friend's chest, sobbing sadly. My friend angrily scolded Tiffany, "You're worse than an animal. Even at this point, you're still trying to blame others. Do you think we're all fools? What a speech. If you hadn't intentionally set a trap, why would your friends explain it like that? I'm here just to borrow your car." Who would bother visiting you? Who do you think you are? You shameless creature, just wait for prison. Karma truly comes full circle. No one is spared retribution. Just a moment ago, Tiffany was shouting to put me in jail. Unexpectedly, the one being handcuffed was her. Because of the loud argument, the surrounding neighbors also gathered to watch. Leading the way was the neighbor from earlier. She peered into the house, saw the miserable scene, and quietly gave me a thumbs up. Good girl, you really did heaven's work. That idiot has committed so many crimes under the guise of mental illness. Every family with a daughter in this village hates him to the bone. Don't worry, neighbors will testify for you. Her family is the mastermind behind harming people. I had anticipated that her family had suffered at the hands of the idiot, so I wasn't too surprised by her support. But the reaction of the other villagers truly astonished me. Among all those who witnessed the event, not a single person stood up to defend Tiffany's family. That alone was enough to show how dirty and terrible they had lived. Finally, the police and ambulance arrived simultaneously. I was taken to the police station to give my statement, while Alex and Tiffany's idiotic brother were rushed directly to the hospital's emergency room. As I was the victim in the incident, the police did not show any unpleasant attitude or interrogation. On the contrary, they were quite concerned about my current state of mind. After I completed my statement, the hospital also sent news. As I had predicted, the parts of both men were completely destroyed, beyond recovery. The idiot was one thing. After all, he didn't have full awareness. My friend told me that Alex, after waking up and realizing he had become a eunuch, went into a rage and demanded to kill me, then fainted from anger. At the same time, my parents were also contacted by the police to inform them of the incident. Having lived through one lifetime already, this time, although still worried, they were better prepared. Accompanying them to the police station was a prestigious lawyer. The final outcome of the incident, thanks to my legitimate self-defense, my cooperative attitude with the police, my willingness to cover all medical expenses, and the lawyer's professionalism, was that I escaped the risk of being charged with excessive self-defense. On the contrary, after recovering, Alex still had to go to prison to face responsibility for his actions. Not only him, but Tiffany, the mastermind behind everything, and her parents were also prosecuted. The only regrettable thing was that because her parents were not present at the scene and vehemently denied their guilt, they escaped conviction. My lawyer was very confident and said that if I wanted to pursue it to the end, he could drag both Alex's parents and Tiffany's mother to court. But I refused, because compared to sitting in prison, living freely in society was the cruelest punishment for them. After all, someone needed to witness the truth about what they had done. It's hard to say if that dark truth were exposed, whether Alex's parents, who merely stood by and did nothing, could bear the shock. As for Tiffany's mother, that utterly rotten woman, I had a much more special plan to care for her. As for the idiot Alex, after recovering from the shock, he would be transferred directly to a specialized mental institution for treatment. The days awaiting him there would certainly not be easy, not peaceful at all, but only full of suffering and torment. As for Tiffany, she was temporarily granted a suspended sentence because she was currently breastfeeding. It must be said that that baby truly had a great destiny. Despite being hit so hard by his own biological father, he still survived. But his health was not very good, somewhat frail. I heard that after learning their son had been deprived of his reproductive ability, Alex's parents treated the baby as an invaluable treasure, ready to sell both their house and car to seek treatment for him. Unfortunately, they would be disappointed. Once my parents and I appeared before Alex. Tiffany was also there. They were enraged, baring their fangs and claws, but utterly helpless, unable to do anything. We brought gifts, but in reality, we brought a much deeper purpose. I sowed doubts in their minds, seeds of discord. And just as I predicted, as soon as we stepped out of the hospital room, we heard a fierce argument erupting between Alex and Tiffany. Indeed, that very day, he secretly performed a paternity test on the baby. The result was as clear as day. The baby was not Alex's biological child. What was even more ironic was that even Tiffany didn't know who the baby's biological father was. That's right, she was completely oblivious. Although the baby was born after she married Alex, it was actually the result of a single one-night stand during her honeymoon. She couldn't remember the man's name, couldn't even recall his face. And I knew this secret because in my past life, the baby had a serious illness and needed an emergency blood transfusion. When Alex went for a blood type test, the doctor suspected a father-child relationship and forced a paternity test. At that time, Tiffany was no less shocked, and the two had a fierce argument. Moreover, at that time, they were also fighting over the fraudulent money they had extorted from my family. If it weren't for their continued greed for my assets after my death, they probably would have divorced long ago. Like in my past life, Tiffany was completely surprised and stunned by this result. But unfortunately, it was too late. In this life, my family no longer had any assets for them to divide. The two immediately filed for divorce. Alex's parents were also so shocked that they almost collapsed. His mother managed to hold on, but his father, out of extreme anger, suffered a stroke that led to partial paralysis. Now, the elderly couple could barely take care of themselves. How could they have the strength to care for a small grandchild? The poor baby, born into the wrong family, ultimately became an unwanted child. Tiffany was forced to use the nursing home as leverage against her mother, compelling her to use all her remaining assets to treat the baby. Unfortunately, all their money was lost, and hope vanished into thin air. The poor baby finally passed away in disappointment and loneliness. My friends recounted this story, and everyone felt immense regret. As for me, I felt that perhaps it was for the best. Born and raised in such a family, it was better not to grow up at all. After the child's death, Tiffany no longer had the excuse of breastfeeding to enjoy a suspended sentence and finally went to prison. The first time I visited her, she seemed strangely calm. "Chu Jade, I really want to know how you knew everything I planned to do. Was it Alex who told you?" Hearing this, I paused for a moment, then burst into laughter. This idea wasn't bad at all. Instead of telling her the truth and giving her a chance to wait or hope, it was better to let her believe that her own husband, her confidant, had betrayed and sold her out. Only then could she truly despair and live the rest of her life in utter agony. I didn't reply to anything, just smiled and turned to leave. After many years of treatment, all the disease foci in my body had been eliminated, and because it was detected in time, there were no more dangerous signs. I had originally intended to tell Tiffany this good news as a final blow to make her suffer even more. Unexpectedly, before I could even get close, I saw a shadowy figure lunging from the other side of the prison. A series of isolated, cold, and decisive actions. In just an instant, the prison staff heard a loud noise, but by the time they arrived, Tiffany was sprawled in a pool of blood without a trace of breath. The assailant did not flee. Instead, he laughed like a madman and tried to claw at her face. "You bitch! You're the one who ruined me, die!" Two escorting police officers quickly subdued him and clamped his arms tightly. As he struggled, he lifted his head. Although his hair was messy, a single glance was all it took for me to recognize him. It was Alex. Ha, truly, karma never misses its mark. I had intended to provoke Tiffany one last time, to tell her that her mother, unable to bear the scornful looks of everyone around, had run off with another man, not even bothering to visit her once. I never expected to witness such an exciting dog-eat-dog scene in the end. I took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. I must say, the weather was truly beautiful today, an ideal day to invite friends for a picnic. I wonder if any of my old friends would still feel sympathy for Tiffany after hearing about this. Probably not, because they weren't as blind as the netizens in my past life.